And with us now to talk more about the future of this train corridor is Dick Beamish, who is the founder and chairman of Adirondack Explorer magazine, and Jim McCulley, who is the president of the Lake Placid Snowmobile Club, a business owner in the Tri-Lakes area. You own Tri-Lakes Vending. Both of you gentlemen are also founders of an organization called ARTA, Adirondack Recreation Trail Advocates. And it is nice to have you both here today to talk about this. Also with us, Jack LeDuc is along to join in on the questioning. You gentlemen have formed this group, ARTA. You're in favor of tearing up the train tracks and replacing most of the sections of this corridor with a multi-use recreation trail.
Right, we're talking about two things here. We're talking about a recreation trail, and tearing up the tracks, we prefer to say removing and salvaging the tracks, and then using the proceeds from that to surface the recreation trail. But we're talking about a trail that would connect Lake Placid, Saranac Lake, Tupper, all the way down to Old Forge, and that's about 90 miles. South of Old Forge, we're all in favor of keeping the tourist train there that goes on to Utica. So we're talking about having it both ways, a trail to the north and a train to the south on this classic historic corridor through the Adirondacks.
And that's a very popular train up in the Tri-Lakes, though, especially during the summer and fall. So a lot of people might say, why don't you keep that leg of it as well? The Adirondack Scenic Railroad running between Lake Placid, Saranac Lake, many would like to see it go on to Tupper Lake.
Right. It's relatively popular, I suppose. Where it's more popular is Old Forge to the south. Between Lake Placid and Saranac Lake, that 9 or 10 miles, most of the trains we see going by appear to be empty. And this train was created 15 years ago with the idea of having an economic impact on the area. And from what we can see, there's been very little impact. So what we're proposing, you can't have both a train and a trail along the rail bed. It's a narrow one-track rail bed. It has to be one or the other. So we're proposing a trail, and so is the town of North Elba and the village of Lake Placid, et cetera. A trail instead of a train. The train has had a fair trial for 15 years. They've given it a game try. You have to give them folks credit for that. A lot of volunteer work, but it hasn't paid off the way it was supposed to. The experiment has not been a success as far as we're concerned, and we believe that a recreational trail would be an enormous success.
Now, how about the train on the other end, the Big Moose Inn, and down there? That's done fairly well?
Well, what we found through our research and looking at their tax returns is roughly 83% of their business is done between Utica and Old Forge, which means that the other portion of the corridor from Old Forge to Lake Placid, you're looking at roughly 17% of their business, and really this is where their biggest costs are actually to reinvigorate the line if they wanted to do that. So really, we think that this is the best of both worlds. You can have both. The train to Old Forge, but from Old Forge to Lake Placid. The trail will be a much superior operation. They attempted to put a trail next to rail in North Elba from Lake Placid to Saranac Lake, and that was met with, basically you're looking at 9 miles of wetlands, which anybody who's gone along the corridor knows it's a lot of wetlands, and the expense just became way too much money, and the town has abandoned that option.
So you've got a unique situation. You got a train on the Lake Placid end, and a train on the Utica end, and nothing in between, but this beautiful corridor.
Right, a wasted resource, and it could be one of the great rail trails, recreational trails in the United States.
And the train people say it could be a great train ride through there.
Sure they do, and they're equally passionate. But we're basing our evidence on other similar rail trails in other parts of the country that have been enormously successful.
Dick, that brings up a good point.
Yeah.
Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
Tell me a little about that.
Well, there's a Pine Creek Trail in Pennsylvania that goes through what's called they call the Grand Canyon of Pennsylvania. It's about 60 miles long, and it attracts probably 150,000 people a year, visitors, some locals, some tourists.
Year-round? They run year-round?
Mostly. I think they can do something in the winter time too, if there's not too much snow in there. But it's been an enormous success. And it's very similar in some ways to the terrain we would be going through in having an outstanding natural area.
Hiking, snowmobiling.
I don't think they have snowmobiling there, probably because they don't have enough snow for it. They have
Hiking and biking?
Yeah,
Cycling?
and principally cycling down there. The trail in the Adirondacks, especially the segment between Lake Placid and Tupper, 34-mile segment, would be suitable for walking, pushing baby strollers, walking your dog, as you do in Saranac Lake, along with being a classic bicycle trail. It'd be great for commuters who would want to go between Placid and Raybrook and Saranac. It would be a major tourist attraction based on other trails in the country.
One of the things that, this is a recreational trail, basically a long flat path through the heart of the Adirondacks. If you could advertise that you can ride your bicycle with nothing more than a 2% grade through the heart of the Adirondacks, this is something that will bring people from around the world. This will become quintessential Adirondack. This is
Jim,
what
you're talking 100 miles?
Well, you're
90,
you're not going to do 100 miles, no. But what you are going to do is you're going to have groups that go, say, they'll stop in Old Forge, they'll ride their bicycle to Tupper Lake, they'll their equipment, their luggage and such will be brought there by vehicle. They'll spend the night in Tupper Lake, then they'll ride the other 40 miles to Lake Placid the following day. And that's what this will become. It's not going to be, oh, we're going to do the whole trail in one day. People are going to be doing segments over time, and that'll bring people back time after time. And obviously with the snowmobile portion of it, yeah, we do it in one day. When the snow is good on the corridor,
Who would maintain that trail?
The snowmobile clubs already maintain it when we have enough snow on it. The Lake Placid Snowmobile Club maintains from Lake Placid to Lake Clear. Franklin County Snowmobile Association maintains from Lake Clear to Piercefield. From Piercefield to Sabattis is maintained by St. Lawrence County Snowmobile Association, and from Sabattis south to Old Forge is maintained by Brass Beaver River Snowmobile and Skiing Association. So this will all be maintained through current funding of snowmobile registrations. Snowmobilers pay their own way. Okay, everything done on the corridor, as far as from the snowmobile point of view, will all be paid for by snowmobiles.
You are already using the corridor. You have been for a number of years. What is the improvement of taking up the tracks?
Well, we'll go from basically needing 8 inches. If the tracks are removed, we'll need about 8 inches of snow. With the tracks in place, we need about 36 inches of snow. So it's a huge difference. I mean, if we pick up, say, 6 inches this weekend, like the storms are calling for, we'll be able to operate. Currently, we generally don't get on the corridor until around January 25th, as I've been looking through the records, as far as to maintain it. We are generally off the corridor by March 1st. As far as maintenance, if you could increase the snowmobile tourism by, say, 6 weeks, that would be a huge impact on the local businesses. And what this trail does is it actually connects all the different trail systems. It connects St. Lawrence County, it connects Franklin County, it connects Essex County, it connects Herkimer County, connects Hamilton County. I mean, this is a major connection that's hugely important. In 1998, New York State Snowmobile Association and the Parks and Rec did a study on the corridor, and between Beaver River and I believe it was Forestport, they counted 223,000 snowmobiles through the corridor in that region in the 3-month period of time we were able to use it. That equates to roughly a $20 million economic impact for the region, which is big money in the Adirondacks when 55% of the businesses close in the Adirondacks for the winter. And the recent Potsdam State study, which showed $242 million worth of economic impact altogether throughout the park from snowmobiling. It's a major industry, and it's a really important industry for these small towns along the corridor. I think for Tupper Lake, this would be a godsend for them, in all honesty.
Speaking of money, how is all this financed? State money?
What we would basically want to do is
And
follow.
how much, Jim?
What we basically want to do is follow the plan that the UMP that was put in place in 1994, which stated that if the train could not make it economically, the tracks would be removed, and the salvage would be used as payment to create the trail.
Enough there?
We think so. I believe.
As far as creating the trail and surfacing it looks like there would be enough. There'd be about $5 or $6 million from the salvage. That would surface the trail nicely for bicycles, almost any kind of bicycle from Lake Placid over to Tupper Lake. South of there, it would be suitable right away for mountain bikes, and with the rotten ties up and the tracks out, it's great for mountain biking. So I think you could immediately have a trail there without much expense, and then there would be annual maintenance, and we would hope to continue to get some money from the state for that. We'd have a lot of volunteer help, snowmobilers, others in the summer.
They've had washouts there. And,
yeah, those would have to be fixed, but there's a whole lot less wear and tear there would be on this railbed with bicycles and snowmobiles than if you had locomotives and freight cars and so forth. It's important to clear up what I think is a misconception about this trail. From Tupper Lake down to Old Forge, you could call it a wilderness trail. Be nothing else like it in the United States. But between Tupper Lake or let's say Piercefield and Lake Placid, that's 40 miles. It's not really a wilderness trail, although it goes through some beautiful country. It parallels the borders, the St. Regis canoe area. It's just gorgeous scenery and pretty wild country, but you're very close to civilization. And this trail would be suitable, this section of it, this 40 miles, for anybody, for elderly people who are out for a stroll in the evening, or parents pushing their kids in a baby stroller, or people just out for a evening or a lunchtime bike ride between Lake Placid and Saranac Lake. It'd be about an hour. It's less than 10 miles. So the idea that this is all rugged terrain and people will be way out in the wilderness and they might get in trouble or get eaten up by black flies and deer flies and all that kind of thing.
Or snow flies.
Or snow fleas too. Okay. You got to watch out for them. We feel is nonsense. But you've got two aspects to this, two sections. The Tri-Lake section, which pulls these communities together and would not only be a great economic boon to the area, but a great quality of life addition. We have nothing like this in the Adirondacks. And this would fill a huge need. And then you could have the wilderness component of it between Tupper and Old Forge, 56 miles or whatever it is. And those are for more hardcore bikers, mountain bikers. In time, there would be places along the way where restaurants and lodgings and so forth, even though a lot of it's state land, you can still have those facilities between, say, Tupper and Beaver River. But so you're talking about two things. And I think that really has to be made clear. It's not just one kind of trail, it's two kinds of trails, phase one and phase two. So.
And what's nice too is once the tracks are removed from Tupper to Old Forge, that's instant snowmobile. They can use it tomorrow. Yeah. I mean, it's that quick. Yeah. And it's just I can't emphasize enough what that would do for the region as far as economic impact. When you have 4,000 snowmobilers in Old Forge every weekend, roughly, you're talking something that'll bring people into the areas like Tupper Lake. As one person described it, it'd be like putting Whiteface Mountain in the middle of Franklin County if we could remove the tracks, because that's the kind of economic impact it'll have.
Do you think snowmobilers would use the trail more than anyone else?
Absolutely.
In the winter.
Yeah.
In the winter, sure.
Yeah, I mean, snowmobiling, the average snowmobiler spends, I don't know, $113 a day, $114 a day, something in that range. If they have a system that now connects them in with the rest of the state system, and that is reliable, and when I say reliable, it's a lot different having 8 inches of snow or having 36 inches of snow. I mean, it's a major thing when people are afraid right now to ride it because of the tracks. I mean, what happens on the corridor right now, if you don't have enough snow, your skis will hit the tracks and hit where the tracks are coupled together, and literally sometimes that'll bend your frame of your snowmobile. Average snowmobile now is over 10,000.
Without 36 inches of snow.
They have been using it, but the reality is once it starts packing down, you cannot groom it properly, and it keeps people from riding it. And you know, as a groomer and somebody who takes it out on a snowcat, it's a hair-raising experience sliding off rails when you have a 3,000-pound drag behind you and you're in a snowcat. And a lot of the things people don't realize, even if you've got it now so it's above the rails, if there's a bump inside the rail, you can never take that out. You can never smooth it as far as for grooming. And that's a big thing with snowmobiling. If it's an uncomfortable ride, no one's going to ride it.
So yes, in the winter, snowmobiles would use this trail to great effect. I don't see it as really as a ski trail or a snowshoe trail particularly, but as a snowmobile path connecting with a network of snowmobile trails to the north. It could be a major activity in the winter. And then in the Adirondacks, we have just about everything recreationally. You know this. We have 2,000 miles of hiking trails. We have wonderful paddling trails throughout the Adirondacks, great cross-country ski trails, et cetera, et cetera. What we don't have is a bikeway away from traffic through connecting the Tri-Lakes region and then to Old Forge. There's nothing like that at all in the Adirondacks. We're lacking that, and it could be a major tourist destination based on successful rail trails elsewhere. And that would complete the recreational picture for the Adirondacks if we could get this trail. And what we have is all the makings of it right there, this wonderful rail bed through much of the Adirondack Park. And would be simple to convert it, relatively inexpensive, and a major attraction. And we also need to emphasize that this isn't only an economic benefit to the region, it's a great thing for people who live there. We'd be using this all the time, every day, not maybe taking the tourist train once a year or once in our lifetimes. We'd be doing this practically daily. And it's just a wonderful spot to bicycle, to walk, to take your kids out, to teach them to bike on this path.
Now, there's been some talk, and not a lot of it, and put down about a combined
there's
rail
no way.
And
Can't be done. It's physically, financially, environmentally totally impossible. It's a non-starter. This is a single-track railroad. Often you have wetlands on both sides. You have about 10 feet of usable space.
a lot of bridges.
What? Bridges,
There's
culverts.
13 between Lake Placid and Saranac Lake.
Yeah.
13 bridges I cross before I get to Saranac Lake.
It's a non-issue. You cannot have both. Now, the railroad people have sort of backed off that because they realize it doesn't make any sense on a single-track line through wetlands and lakes and so forth. You can't have both, period. End of discussion. So what they're saying now is, well, you can have the rail with trails. And what they mean by that is that the railroad would connect up with trails along the way where they're saying you could drop somebody off, they could go off for a day or two or a week, then the railroad could pick them up on the way back, which is as outlandish, I think, as the idea of having both the rail and trail parallel next to each other. Because the trailheads in the Adirondacks you could drive to. It's convenient to drive to trailheads. We do it all the time. You don't need to go by a train schedule, pay to get on the train, put your canoe or whatever you have on the train, your hiking equipment, tents, go out, have them drop you off, then pick you up 2 days later at a certain time. It simply doesn't scan. It makes no sense whatever. But that their latest fallback is, well, if we can't have a rail and a trail together on this rail bed, we can have a rail with trails. But that doesn't hold up to any kind of analysis either.
You know, the bottom line really is first of all, we have a train that is, you know, by their standards, they're successful. If you read their tax returns, they're financially insolvent. I mean, so why would you spend money that you don't have? I mean, what's currently going on? I mean,
Well, they claim they are solvent.
Well, they're functionally insolvent if you look at their tax returns. That's what we go by because that's the only thing you can really count on. as far as numbers. They had a study done by Stone Consulting that said that if they did expand their railroad, they would add an extra 7,000 people to the region per year.
That's from Lake Placid to Utica.
That's all, yeah. For 7,000 new people a year to spend 17 million, or like the state says 43 million, it's just not a viable thing to do. And when you already have the resource there, that the corridor's there, why would you have both? It's the only place there's ever been a rail with trail, okay, is where there was 2 tracks going down the same corridor, and they removed one track. Okay, that's the only place that has ever happened. The state of Maine did a study on this, and this is from Rails to Trails. They did a study on doing basically the trail with rail, and they figured it would cost them about $2 million a mile.
And for many people that hear this debate and automatically ask that question, could they coexist?
Right.
You say resoundingly the answer is
It's
no, impossible.
It's a total, absolute impossibility. And the railroad folks are acknowledging that now, that you can have both at the same time side by side. They will give you this.
Well, having taken that trip, I can see when you come to a bridge, you're out of business.
Well, and there's vast amounts of water there too that would have to be filled. I mean, it's just not an environmentally sound.
The state doesn't like filling wetlands.
Well,
I understand that.
Well, apparently not, from what I hear.
Neither does the Army Corps of Engineers, which apparently has finally shot down this.
The trail between Lake Placid
and Saranac.
and Saranac Lake there, North Elba. That's what finally happened. The Army Corps of Engineers came in and said, no, you can't do this.
Are there any legal entanglements of removing the train tracks?
No.
We do not believe so. The track, the corridor itself is owned in fee, okay, by the state of New York. So, and quite frankly, this has been done all over with rail trails. Not only is it owned in fee, which means that it doesn't have rights going back to the neighboring property owners, but you can also do rail banking, which rail banking, what it does is it keeps the rail corridor intact in case someday down the road they would like to turn it back into a railroad.
I know one of the points that the supporters of keeping the train raise is that it would take years and years to get the tracks up and to create this recreation trail. That this isn't, that it's not something that would happen within a few years.
It could be done very quickly.
Once the state makes the decision, they figure it'll be about a year to remove them all the way to Tupper Lake the first year, and the second year they remove them to Old Forge.
Would there likely be legal challenges? So I mean, we've seen so many other projects down the Adirondacks that have ended up
folks have
tied up in the litigation.
Implied that if this happens, they'll sue and hold things up. They haven't actually come out and said this, but the implication has always been there. Who knows? Anybody can sue if they want to, and if they wanted to hold things up for a while, I suppose they could, even though the public wants a trail there. But that's always a possibility. But the whole process of removing the tracks and salvaging them and surfacing the 40 miles between Lake Placid and Piercefield could be done quite quickly. There's no reason it wouldn't be.
As far as lawsuits,
2 years maximum.
Excuse, I'm sorry about that. As far as lawsuits go, DOT still holds the rights to the corridor from Utica to Old Forge. It probably wouldn't be a good idea to sue them over removal of the tracks from Old Forge North. I think that would probably keep those types of things at bay.
Well, you have sued the state before.
Yeah.
You've taken the state on.
Oh yeah.
And I won.
And you won.
Yeah.
But I mean, when it comes to a long-term battle like this, we're 40 years into there being no passenger service on that corridor. Or actually, we're 49 years. I'm 48 years old. So before I was born, passenger service stopped on that. For them to say that this may take a long time to remove, I think we've waited long enough. And quite frankly, it may take a long time, but we should get started now.
And for those of us of a certain age, this is particularly critical that we move along quickly. Since you're what, 49, did you say?
48, yeah.
48. And I'm pushing 80, and I really don't want to wait another 40 years, if you get my drift.
Well, let me ask you, they of course say that they believe that if the state does restore the tracks, that it would be a viable route to get passengers from New York City on trains to Lake Placid, and that economically it could be a boon to the area.
Think about the timing involved, going from New York City to Albany to Utica up through the Adirondacks. We figured, according to their own calculations, the railroad folks, that it would take something like 14 hours. And when you can drive the distance in 4.5 hours to get to the Adirondacks, probably 5 at the most to get to Lake Placid.
Well, it takes 14 hours from New York City to Montreal on Amtrak.
14 hours?
And that's shorter.
Okay.
Well, it's 5 hours from New York City to Utica on Amtrak, and then of course you would have to head north, which is another 6 or 8 hours, and their plan is to run it at 30 miles an hour. It's just it's not really feasible.
Yeah.
I mean, they're nice ideas. I'm not going to but the reality is people don't have two things right now. They don't have time and they don't have money. To say that you're going to pay $200 for a round trip ticket from New York City to Lake Placid, spend 13 hours on a train, spend 24 hours in Lake Placid, and then get back on a train 13 hours for your weekend. It's just not viable. You can claim that everybody wants to do this, but if everybody wanted to ride the train would still be running. It's not. This is just not really it's a nice idea. That's all you can say about it.
It's a pipe dream.
I mean, even their Pullman service they were talking about, I looked it up online, from Chicago to New Orleans. They're running just 2 trips a month, and they're averaging between 8 and 12 people riding that train.
This has been talk about a sleeper car.
Yes,
that's right.
Yeah, the sleeper car through the through the scenic
There's been talk about our Senator Betty Little has spoken in Saranac Lake about the possibility of having foreign tourists who she says love trains, and for good reason, they have good train service in Europe, would get on the train in New York and take the Pullman car up to Lake Placid, as they did in the old days, and then see Lake Placid and turn around and go back. And maybe 100 years ago, or even 70 years ago, that was the way to do it, and a viable option. The idea that people would do that today, even people from Europe who love trains, would devote all that time and all that money to going up to Lake Placid and going through the Adirondacks in the dark, going there and not seeing anything anyway, is yet another pipe dream. But we're basing our dream on what's happened with other similar rail trails in other parts of the country. The Virginia Creeper Trail down in that state, 34 miles at the foot of the Blue Ridge Mountains, gets about 150,000 visitors a year using it. Towns along the way have prospered because of this trail. A town of Damascus, which was dead in the water 20 years ago, it's very much like Tupper Lake, was a lumbering center down in that Blue Ridge region of Virginia. It was totally dead when the logging industry went south. Now with this trail there, its population 1,000. With the trail in, they now have something like 6 bed and breakfasts just in the immediate area. They have as many restaurants. They have a whole bunch of bike shops. The town has come back to life.
Who would maintain the biking trail?
Who maintains it?
Who would maintain?
In our case, in the Adirondacks, volunteers would maintain it. We'd have some state money going toward maintaining it. Snowmobile groups in the winter would maintain it.
Because the state can't maintain the trails, the hiking trails.
Well, the state has been putting in, $250,000, $300,000 a year toward maintaining this rail trail, this rail bed through the Adirondacks, most of which isn't used anyway. So we would hope that there would continue to be
You would try to convince them to switch that
money.
money
You bet your
over.
life that we would hope to get some maintenance money from them, but a lot of this work would be done by volunteers. And you're talking about, a trail that most of the work could be done that way.
Well, the Adirondack Mountain Club does do a lot of trail.
Well, sure, hiking trails. They do a lot of good stuff, and some good stuff could be done here. So I don't think that the cost of maintaining a rail trail should be a big issue, since the cost of maintaining a railroad through there would be much, much greater. So
Exactly.
yeah, go ahead.
Well, that's exactly it. And, from what we've seen, you're talking about basically for yearly maintenance about $1,000 a mile, so $90,000 a year. ARTA has.
That's for snowmobile, Jim? Or
That's for everything.
everything?
That's for everything.
Summer
yeah.
and winter.
Snowmobiles. Of course, it's a different formula every year with Parks and Rec. How much money we get towards trail maintenance, but it's running about $300 a year for snowmobile trail maintenance. So there's $27,000 right there. But
$300 per mile? Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Right.
The state has been holding public hearings this fall.
Yeah,
and we expect within the next few weeks, the state is going to make a decision. Now it's been taking public comment. It will decide whether to reevaluate the management plan.
That's right.
For this
That's our understanding.
for this corridor.
We've been told it should be. The announcement should be made soon, but the state doesn't always act on that as quickly as we would like them to.
Commissioner Martens and Commissioner McDonald took a tour of the
Right.
corridor within the past couple of weeks.
So they know what's there.
So they know it's there. They
Yeah.
seem to be paying attention to this.
Yes.
Do you think the mere fact that they held the 4 public hearings and that they're evaluating this after years of contentious debate over this, is that encouraging to you that they may reopen?
Well, it's unimaginable to us that they wouldn't review the management plan for the corridor after all the interest that's been expressed, all the public hearings, all the input they've had, and that we can't imagine that they would not go ahead and at least open up this plan and look at the best use of this corridor.
And is that something that could be done in a timely fashion, or would that drag on for years?
Well, they could do it as fast as they want. I mean, they can do it in 9 months if they'd like. I think what you have to remember is every community from Lake Placid to Old Forge has requested that the tracks or that the UMP be reopened. Every community.
And most of them have requested that the tracks be taken up right now and the thing turned into the railbed turned into a recreation trail. They've been very clear on that. So the local government support for doing this is enormous.
What I don't understand is the governor has stated that he will do what the people of the area want.
He's pretty much stayed out of this debate.
Yeah, he stayed out of it.
Yeah.
But,
He says that's for his commissioners too.
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, the people of the area, I think, have spoken very loudly. During the last election cycle here for local elections, the pro-trail candidates won pretty much everything. And with every community, Tupper Lake Village, Tupper Lake Town, Harrietstown, Lake Placid, North Elba, Piercefield, Colton, all of them passing resolutions requesting the tracks be removed.
Right.
How can they no longer listen to us? I find it hard to believe that DOT is basically going against the will of the people.
And the governor has gone to bat for tourist development in the Adirondacks. He's spoken out a number of times when he's visited here and saying this is what we need is more economic development in tourism. And what could fit better, in our view, with that goal than this recreation trail through the Adirondack Park? So the idea that the state would not reopen this management plan for the corridor seems inconceivable.
Well, in the Adirondacks, I think we basically have to get out of the model that it's another state grant. Everybody needs state money continuously. Okay, and I think this trail will use a small amount of state funds, comparatively speaking, to be maintained. This is something that will actually, during the summertime, the trails folks figured that it would be $20 million worth of economic impact during summer. We figure with the extended season during the wintertime, snowmobile impact will be about $40 million. Here's something that is exactly what the Adirondacks need, something that is not based on the business model of continuing grants, that will actually draw people to the region. So we just think it's a great idea for everyone.
Dick Beamish, Jim McCulley, Jack Leduc.
Thank you.
Thank you all for taking the time to be with us.
Thank you.
Pleasure. Thank you.